Hey all, it's LC back again with another video. Welcome to the Cannabis Club. Any support you would show to the channel or the video would be much appreciated. With that, let's get right into it. Today we're going to be talking about how to figure out what kind of strains of THC in cannabis would be best for you. You know, how to decide what to start with, whatever the scenario is, and also what the different effects of the different kinds of THC in a broader sense are. And with that, I'm going to get into it just by saying two different things. One, trying different things and being experimental in the way the different kinds of products you try, whether that's flower, edibles, concentrates, as well as trying different strains in different broader kinds of strains like different sativas and indicas will give you a better read overall. And I think firsthand experience and just trial and error is probably the best way to go. But that's like a soft, easy answer, and there is a more in-depth way to look at it in a way you could try to narrow it down if you wanted to, if you're looking for desired effects. And this will be a good way for you to try to do that. While the other thing is more about desired experience, whether you want to smoke, vape, eat it, whatever, you can do whatever you want with that. And trial and error is really the only way to figure out how much you're going to like that kind of stuff. With this, you can try to narrow it down a little, and that's going to lead us into what we're talking about today. Let's talk about indicas, sativas, and hybrids. First off, let's start off with the basic explanation of what an indica and what a sativa is. A lot of people like to refer to this. Body high for indica, mind high or head high for sativas. And this is very true, but only so true. A lot of the strains do have overlapping effects like hunger, dry eyes, dry mouth, little effects like that are always going to be there. But they do have individual effects that are way more heavy within these strains, especially within the pure ones. Like sativas are way better for being uplifted, being creative, still being active while being able to consume cannabis. But they also, in my opinion, are worse for things like making yourself paranoid, not getting rid of things like anxiety, but even, potentially making them worse. And that's kind of what I think of sativas and the effects of sativas. And my favorite thing for them is they put me in that really creative mindset, and I think they're just amazing for that. But when it comes to indicas, and this is kind of the way I prefer to go, even though my personal preference and my favorites are definitely hybrids, and it's definitely the way I would recommend to go, or at least start trying. But like, it really depends on your desired effects here, and that's why we're kind of listing the effects. With indicas, it's going to be much more body oriented. You're going to be couch potatoed, potentially, depending on the strain, really sleepy. This stuff helps with sleep. This stuff potentially helps with minor body pains. It can help more major medical issues. Cannabis can, but it really depends. And I would definitely, of course, I'm not no doctor. Talk to a doctor. Indicas do help with that kind of stuff. In my opinion, indica is what helps with stress of anxieties. Also, in my opinion, it's not as likely to make you overly paranoid or overly anxious itself. So that's kind of why I think these kind of strains have the more properties to release stuff like that, where both strains could kind of relieve stuff like depression and whatnot, and provide some relief to that. So these are kind of the differences in these two kinds of strains, and hybrids basically mix these together to varying degrees. And while a more middle ground hybrid is going to be very 50-50 on effects, that's not super common, and it's way more likely to have a sativa or an indica dominant. And that basically means they'll have slightly more effects that way than the other, but they will have more of those other desired effects. And that's kind of why I prefer it. In fact, my personal favorite kind is an indica dominant hybrid, though I do also really like sativa dominant hybrids, and I probably actually prefer sativa dominant hybrids over normal sativas most of the time, especially some of the really strong ones, just because I find that cannabis doesn't make me paranoid or anxious too much overall. It definitely, sativas and stuff don't kind of cure that kind of stuff for me nearly as much. So I still, like, whenever doing sativas, I still usually will prefer a sativa dominant hybrid to kind of get um some of that indica effects without having to be couch potatoed or to be totally sleepy. Though yeah, again, indica dominants are probably my favorite, especially for just casual use, especially for sleeping. And the reason I say for casual use and not just for sleeping is most of the time, if it's a, at least the indica dominant hybrids I really like, usually are the ones that won't send you straight to sleep. That's not to say that if you're looking for that, an indica dominant hybrid couldn't help you with it, because I really personally think it could. And this is just kind of the overview of how all these different things work. There is different little things like ruderales and, different things about hybrids we could mention here, but um, I don't I don't really want to go into all that just because it's a little more niche. It's not as common. You're probably not going to run into it. And that's just kind of the basis over of what you're going to see in every kind of smoke shop being labeled indica, sativa. And while some people would say this kind of stuff doesn't matter, the indica sativa part, I would argue it matters a lot more than a lot of other things in cannabis. And that's just because it's a broad spectrum to kind of show you what kind of effects you're going to be affected with when consuming that cannabis. And I would say that the name also matters to an extent as well, because you need to be able to narrow it down even more. And because of the different websites like Leafy and whatnot out there, you'll be able to narrow it down to the kind of effects that certain kind is going to give you. Now granted, you could argue that this the names themselves are less meaningful because of the variations in different kinds, like different kinds of cookies and different kinds of Gorilla Glue and different kinds of Blue Dream, all having slight differences, and those websites only being so accurate to each kind. And you could argue all that. So I would say the indica sativa thing we just went into is even a little more important than their individual names. But I would argue all of it has its purpose, and all of it has its resourcefulness in helping you narrow down what you want to try. And I use these different methods all the time. Anyone could have explained this to you, but I just wanted to make a little video giving a little ramble about it, just in case anyone was on my channel and wondering about the different kinds of THC and how they worked and what I prefer personally. And just to kind of give maybe some people that are looking for what they need a way to find out and get a better idea, and even to give you all some resources on how to get a better idea, like the website Leafy, and even just Google overall will help you figure out how these things should affect you. And I do of course recommend clicking on more than just a web page or two if you're really trying to make sure that you're trying to pinpoint it for sure. But overall, don't stress it too much. You can always just not buy it again. You can always try something different. Not everything's going to be for you. And with that, that'll be the whole video, and y'all have a blessed day.